Hey guys, Nolar here, back with another 5-9 gaming video, and this time we're going to discuss the Loki series, the finale, the entire series as a whole, Disney Plus, MCU stuff, even future MCU stuff. So, spoilers alert, there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, this was taken from our live Twitch stream, and if you don't know what we do on Twitch, go down the link tree below to follow us and check us out. We're pretty much live as much as we can be, almost 24/7 at this point. So, we decided to take an hour and a half, sit there, talk about how we feel about Loki, the end of the series, all that stuff. To join with me was Goresh, Very Geek, and Nas, and myself. So, with that said, if you like the video, like this kind of content, let us know in the comments down below what you think about Loki, all that stuff. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're new, and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live with videos. Here we go. All right, guys. Thanks for coming by. I don't know if everyone's here, but we're going to be talking about Loki, the whole show breakdown, especially the last episode. Definite spoilers. So if you guys have not seen the show, y'all should dip and watch it. It's really good, but
extremely good.
Season 2 looks good. All right.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Okay.
Is season 2 coming? I would assume season 2 is not going to happen until after some of the movies, or is it going to come before? Yeah. They didn't really specify.
I don't know. We can speculate about that in a bit, but I assume it'll be after. It'll be a year or so, or two.
I'm thinking probably like a little bit before or after Ant-Man 3, which is like in 2023. So
yeah. Okay.
Again,
so
everyone, the spoilers just.
It's in the title.
Spoiler alerts.
Spoilers is in the title of the stream.
Yeah, but Nas people don't read. So, spoilers. Making sure y'all know. Okay.
Okay, so when we get started here, let's just talk about the last episode, okay?
You want to start with the last one? Or you want to start with the beginning and kind of walk people through it? We can go either way. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, because a lot of people, I feel like, that don't read the comics aren't going to understand the true significance of the final episode. Or at least if they haven't followed up on the comics. Because they didn't even name drop. What is the actor's name? Is Jonathan Majors, right?
Yeah, he's good.
They changed it a little bit from the comics.
Yep.
Well, perhaps. As of right now, it's very, very close to basically that character that we see in the final episode is Immortus, right? Which is
that's the difference between the comics, because that character in the comics, he who shall remain, is his own character. They combined that person with Immortus in the show.
Yeah. He who remains, I think that's what they call him.
Yeah, that's what they called him. They didn't name drop him as Immortus.
Well, no, that's his actual, that's the character's name. He who remains is the name of the creator of the TVA in the comics.
Oh, so you're saying they merged Immortus and the comic character, another comic character, to make this character.
Yeah, because he who remains is a very, very big character. So they were just like, all right, whatever, we'll just combine him with Immortus or something.
Well, that actually does make sense, because with them combining those two characters, they can rewrite, like you said, the backstory a little bit, because originally Kang, aka also Immortus, because Immortus is a future version of Kang, they're both a descendant of Reed Richards from the 31st century. But now if they've combined these two, they could basically disassociate him from Reed Richards if they don't want to bring the Fantastic Four back up into this.
I don't think they won't do that. I think obviously they probably didn't name drop him yet, like his real name, anytime soon, because they haven't reintroduced the Fantastic Four. But yeah, I don't, especially because they own Fox now. I don't think they're afraid to tackle Fantastic Four, especially with all this multiversal science mumbo jumbo. This is if you want to talk about opportune times to introduce the Fantastic Four, it's now. So especially with everything branching at the end, I don't think they're afraid. I just think they're waiting.
It also can bring mutants into the equation, because the Reed Richards family, he carries the mutant gene. Even though Kang himself doesn't have any superpowers, he carries the mutant gene. He's related, and again, this is if the movies go this direction, but he's obviously related to Franklin Richards, who's the most powerful mutant to ever exist. So whether or not they've used this to start pulling mutants, and also if you go back to like the WandaVision show, you had like Monica Rambeau going through the hex, which like altered her DNA. Like they could be using multiple angles here now to start working in mutants as well as Fantastic Four. So
Yeah, because at the end of the last episode too, it's like you actually see all those like branching timelines now. So it also can play into the part of now that all these different timelines are starting to branch out further and further, it'll be more easier to uh bring in more mutants from like other like now bringing the mutants from like the other universes, so to speak.
I mean, this show is sort of like the way that we're gonna have a sort of plausible beginning to like 3 movies coming up,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I mean, this opens the doors for the next Spider-Man movie, for the next Ant-Man and Wasp movie, and then for the next Doctor Strange, right? Those 3 movies are all talking about either some sort of time travel or some sort of multiverse, right?
yeah, they are all directly set up by this show right here.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
this show, just to quickly establish this fact, is that this show, out of all the Marvel shows, this is definitely the most important one.
Yeah.
Now,
100%.
the thing is, it was confirmed Loki is going to be in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, right? Like
As well as
we-
Wanda Maximoff, yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't know for sure until now, right? So the interesting thing is, and here's like where I wish they played this a little differently, in the sense that like I hope that we didn't know Doctor Strange 2 was called the Multiverse of Madness. I just wish they just called it Doctor Strange 2, and then at the end of this Loki finale
okay.
episode,
Oh,
they
yeah.
said Loki will reappear in Doctor Strange 2. Bam, the Multiverse of Madness. Like, because the thing is, since we know it's about the multiverse, and we knew a little bit about stuff about Kang from Ant-Man 3, we already knew it was going to be Kang, right? Like, everyone knows it was going to be Kang. So
Yeah.
if we didn't know about the multiverse and, all this other stuff, then, like, the Kang reveal would have hit a lot harder, if you guys know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So if they just like hid the Multiverse of Madness part from from the Doctor Strange 2, then at the end where it says season 2 will be later, and then after that Loki will be in Doctor Strange 2, boom, show the subtitle after that, that would have like set the internet on fire. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, because
I don't
the thing is like when it was first introduced, like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, everyone immediately started, theory crafting right then and there. And so like even like with that, like that's also when people are just like, okay, so now that at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, with Doctor Strange like having Multiverse of Madness, everyone's already theory crafting that, oh yeah, Doctor Strange is gonna help Spider-Man try to get back his like secret identity, not be outed like he was in the last of movie. But if Multiverse of Madness wasn't, if it was just called Doctor Strange 2, no one would have came up with those theory crafts or like and stuff like that, so it would have been still under blanket. And then with this, with Loki, with like the end of Loki, and then showing Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness, that's when everything would have blown up. Not only just the show and the movie.
Yep.
That's when people would have started theory crafting for Spider-Man and Ant-Man the Wasp. If they would have kept this a little bit more tighter to their chest, so to speak, it would have been a lot bigger.
yeah, today's age and stuff. Just to add to your point, the only thing the problem is in today's age, it's going to be hard to keep that stuff under wraps, right? So like I kind of understand why they did what they did, but I just wish they went this particular way, because then that would have just made things a lot better, at least in my opinion. But sorry, go ahead, Geek.
Oh no, I was gonna say I think 2 things. The first one is like it reminds me of before Captain America Civil War got announced as Civil War in
Yeah.
Comic-Con, when they had like their timeline where they showed all the names of the movies coming up until Endgame, which was like Avengers Infinity War Part 2 at the time.
Yep.
They called it like at the beginning of the thing, they called it Serpent Society. Everyone was like, what the hell's Serpent Society? And then at the end, they were like, here's like the actual name drop. And it was like, boom, Civil War.
Yep.
Yeah, like, I kind of, again, I do agree with you. The whole Multiverse of Madness thing is kind of, again, I agree that they probably should have kept it tighter to their chest. The problem is, I guess, because like I agree with you, Noir, about what you said about how like news and stuff, like you know, things get out, people are gonna find out. Um, I don't know about the general like just moviegoer, you know what I mean, or like general like MCU fan that doesn't like follow like the movie news or even hear about these things or like even knew about Jonathan
Yep.
Majors, right? Like those types of people probably would even like care. Like we're like, oh, what's this movie? Okay, well, but like
That's true. That's a good point.
because like we're in this space, right? We're in this like
Yeah,
media
we're
where, like,
in the
we're
beer.
following everything. Yeah,
The bubble. Yeah. We are the bubble.
We're like we found out about Jonathan Majors being cast in Ant-Man 3, which was just a rumor, by the way. Was it, or not a rumor, but like it was just like a casting thing that wasn't even like officially put out by Marvel. And then it was like,
Right.
yeah, he's in Ant-Man 3, and then it's like we knew that, but I guess Marvel's perspective was they were trying to act like nobody knew that, which is why when you see Immortus in this episode, you're like, holy shit, like this is big. That's kind of, I guess, how they perceive it going. Like it's like the same thing with the Spider-Man stuff. Like there's so much stuff happening, or quote unquote happening, or supposed to happen according to rumors and all that, based off of what happened in Loki, that has giant implications towards like Spider-Man and forward.
They did try to hide it a little bit too, because I remember they'd interviewed Jonathan Majors about him showing up in Loki.
Oh, yep.
He said he wasn't going to. So like they tried to hide it a little bit, but they didn't do a good job.
Okay, so that in particular interview you're referencing, the question was like, are you going to Kang going to show up in the Loki series?
Yeah.
Right, and he says, I don't know. That's his exact words. I don't know. So he never confirmed nor denied it. He just like, dodged the question altogether.
Yeah.
But people inferred like, oh my God, he must be in it, that kind of thing. So they didn't know. But yeah, him as Kang the Conqueror this is not Kang the Conqueror. It's He Who Remains, Immortus, whatever you want to call it. But he makes it pretty clear that like, yeah. Oh no, let's talk about away from like the implications of the future stuff. Why don't we talk about the actual like show itself? So like, how do we think the actors did here? Like Tom Hiddleston is Loki, or at least Loki Prime, or whatever you want to call him.
He's got such a wide range of acting, and his enthusiasm to keep portraying the character indefinitely is really nice. Like you see a lot of the actors like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, who when their contracts expired, they were very happy, it seemed, to jump off onto other projects. Meanwhile, you have the other ones that are really enthusiastic about sticking around, which I really like that, to be honest. Tom Hiddleston just put out an interview the other day where some anonymous person in the fan crowd asked him, like, if you were going to play Loki for the rest of your life, would you be like happy to do that? And it took him like half a second of thinking to be like, yes, absolutely. I'm all for that. He does a great job. And I honestly really liked how, because I was apprehensive at first, because this Loki is the Avengers movie from like literally right when he was trying to take over the world. Yeah, from 2012. Yep. And I was really apprehensive at first because I felt like through the course of, Thor 2, Ragnarok, and the Infinity Saga, that Loki had some really good character development. And like, seeing his father dies, witnessing all the stuff that Hela did. I was worried at first that was going to just be all ruined, because it's like, all right, we're just walking this character back like 6-7 years. Here you go. But for it being a TV show, I feel like they caught him up to speed and even gave him more growth beyond that Loki. Yep. And they did it really effectively in a 6-episode time frame, right?
I basically took that whole scene where he's sitting in the room with like the projector on as them basically telling us like, okay, this guy's basically caught up with the Loki that died of Thanos now.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like they knocked that out really efficiently. I think Owen Wilson was great. Super convincing.
Oh, like, yeah.
Even though Owen Wilson, in almost every project, he's essentially playing himself, his personality fits in the MCU in this role very, very well.
Not a single wow.
No.
He did. Okay, he did say
ka-chow, though.
He said ow, and it did sound like wow. So I'll give it to him.
I mean, to be completely honest, when I heard Owen Wilson was going to be in this show, I was like, Really? Like, I was like sitting here wondering, is like, is he gonna be good? Like, or is this gonna be like a flop? Oh my god, dude! Watching Owen Wilson play as Mobius was just something else. He was very phenomenal in
Yeah, I
that.
really loved their back and forth dynamic. It makes me sad. Like, I actually honestly wish there was a 7th episode of this show, and one of them, like between like 2 and 5, was just like a whole episode of them buddy together doing more stuff. I felt like I would have been
Yeah.
so satisfied with a whole nother episode of just them as like time patrol buddies, basically, right?
Before
Yeah,
they,
they're. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say before they revealed there's gonna be a season 2. I was kind of upset that they didn't show him on a jet ski.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
Yeah.
it was on my bingo card. Like, okay, he'll be on a jet ski. We'll see that, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, they
I
cut
wanna talk about
straight
his-
to the
yeah.
chaos.
I want to talk about
Yeah.
his like acting, like Owen Wilson. Like the moment, it's only a little bit ahead. Like, but his overall performance in general was like phenomenal. But the one that got me the most was right at the end when Loki shows up to like warn them, and like you almost believe it, right? He's just like, whoa, you're an analyst, right? Like think or whatever. You're like, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, we're gonna get like he's warning them, whatever. Then he's like, no, like who are you? And who are you with? And I was like, yo, that switch. Like I was convinced that was the same Mobius. Like the way he
Yep.
like looked at him, and the way they interacted. I was like, I didn't feel like a different Mobius. And I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
my heart sank
that was
at that
weird.
moment, bro.
Well, yeah. The worst part too is like they built the last 6 episodes or the other 5 episodes of like this good rapport between the two, and then they shattered that the second he was like, wait, who are you? So he was like, that sucks. but
Yeah.
but that scene unto itself was like probably the best scene in the entire episode to me. The way it was set up, because one, the performances were off the charts, but then two, when you see Loki look at the statue and it's Kang,
yeah.
like the visual, the way the shot for shot, the way they did that was great. So like, yeah, probably the best scene to me collectively of the final episode.
It also,
Oh.
like you also have to think too. It's like when Sylvie pushed Loki into the portal. It's like I also like now you wonder. It's like she pushed him into the portal before everything changed, right? So now, is Loki back in the same time, like the main timeline, and then Kang took over, or was it like another?
No, he
like,
went straight into an alternate dimension.
He went.
Well-
Because that's the one thing I got thinking. Because the thing is, if he got pushed back into the main timeline, he should have been like back to where Mobius was. Because Mobius went back to the TVA. So now I was just sitting here wondering, it's like now because of everything that changed, now that main timeline.
It's not.
So
It's
that
not the
can-
main. Like you could see in the interview, like or in the office when Immortus is talking to them. He's like, it's already splintering. Looking in the background, he's like, what's the choice gonna be? And he's like pressuring them, and you could see in the background the timeline is starting to fracture.
Well, hold on. It doesn't the TVA exist outside of the timeline? Isn't that
Yeah,
the whole
that's-
point of the TVA?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So him going, okay, him going back to the TVA should just be outside of that, right? So
Yeah.
to me, it seems like when Sylvie pushes Loki back into the TVA, reality just changed. Period. So like instead of the 3 timekeepers, we now have Kang as the one controlling the TVA.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
I think the end is supposed to be unexplainable for now. Like we're not supposed to understand
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
Because keep in mind you literally killed like the person who's controlling everything. So who knows what happens, right? Who knows what's gonna happen? He
What are
kind
the
of hints.
consequences? Yeah.
He kind of hints that they can take over his position and like everything will potentially be the same and they'll keep track of everything, or they can kill him and then he mentions like chaos will erupt and different versions of him will start coming over and try to conquer everything. So again, we don't really know. I don't think we're supposed to understand what really happened. I think this is supposed to be the same Mobius, the same like everything in the TVA. It's just the actual reality around the same people changed so much that everything just got like everything's different now.
Also, you gotta keep in mind too, like they didn't just use the same like standard temp pad. She used like
Kang's stamp
and
pad.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his is like way different. So he probably has like more than likely has connections to like a bunch of different timelines and shit. So It's
Yeah,
not like the standard one where she like can input it and like it's like the one she's always been using. It's more so I think that it's a bit of what Goresh said and a bit of that too, because she just kind of like it seemed like she just somehow just pushed random buttons and just sent him
That,
to the different TVA.
That was sort of the one thing I really didn't like about the ending was like Sylvie just didn't seem like, I don't know. I did not agree with how they handled that ending for her. Like she just like didn't care about anything. She just killed him. That was it. Like okay.
Yeah, you could
Well-
tell she had her mind made up that freedom was the right way to go, and that whatever threat she could handle it, right? But I don't think she's way out of her bounds in her understanding of what's about to happen.
Well, I
Yeah.
think the most important thing to remember is that, you know, her motivation is the fact that everything was stripped from her. She doesn't trust anyone. She's a Loki, right? A variant of Loki. She doesn't trust anybody. So that's where like the tension was between Loki and Sylvie. He's saying, "Trust me, like we should probably look into this," and she says, "No, I want my like her rage to kill the people involved, stripping her from everything she had. She wanted that
Yes.
done."
I
And
would
then, but on
agree. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'm just saying, like, then the confrontation is Loki saying, "Trust me, like we should look into this," and she can't trust him, right? And even though she feels she like built this whole rapport with him for the last 4 or 5 episodes, that's what. Okay, this part I hate, the kiss, and then pushing him off symbolized was like, I want to do this, but I gotta go with my basic instinct. While compared to Loki, he grew, right? He went from the 2012 Avengers to the point of like he wanted to rule the world, he wanted his own kingdom, all that kind of stuff, and now he's just like, I don't want a kingdom. Like he said that, I want to save reality. Is his motivation at the end. And then Sylvie pushing him out to do that, that was like betrayal to him, and that sucks. And that like hits really hard. But like Sylvie's part, like I completely understand it. I kind of agree, maybe not the best way to handle it, but I see their motivation and why they did what they did with it.
I would agree, but the entire rest of the show like was so inconsistent with that because she's literally spent her entire life meticulously planning every move. And you know, I don't know how old she is, but she's probably very old. She's a Loki, right? So her entire life was spent meticulously planning and thinking every single move out. And then you get to this one scene and she doesn't think about anything and she just kills him and doesn't think about it. It's like,
Well,
all right,
yeah, I see your point, but my rebuttal to that is she was always by herself. She only had one person to trust, and that was herself, right? Now she's built a trust with Loki, and now she's conflicted as to how to handle it. So that's, to me, why her actions were not rational, at least to what she was before. So that's, to me, how they explained it.
What I also liked about just like this whole entire episode alone was just like Kang, or you know, he who was remained, just how he acted throughout this whole entire.
Oh yeah.
How every time like they went to try to stab him, slash at him, and like he kept on like going back and like he kept on like saving himself, and he's just like acting like a child because like he was always like, oh, I know what's gonna happen, until once it finally happened where he didn't know anything and he left it up to fate. I just love how he completely changed and he was like, ooh, like now he got more interested.
Yeah, when you've been living 1 billion years doing the same thing every day, you get bored, and now he's finally like got that last. It's like in the Pirates of the Caribbean when the very end, the captain Barbados is turned back into a human. He bites the apple and then he gets shot, and he's like, "Oh, okay, finally get to feel something again."
I think the entire purpose of them doing that though was to just sort of depict that with the knowledge that he has, he's like invincible, but without that knowledge, he's literally just a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's literally Kang's whole. He doesn't have a superpower. He's just literally super intelligent and super technologically advanced, and that's how.
If you're literally like, if you're all knowing and you know everything that's about to happen at all times forever, like you can't die, right? It's impossible.
Yeah.
So.
But just like that alone was just really well done, though.
Yeah, I thought Jonathan Majors acted the hell out of this, which makes it interesting because now when he comes back as Kang the Conqueror, he's gonna have to change the way he is, right? So like
Yeah.
he'll act way different, and I think he's talented enough to pull that off, right? So I think the casting for the show altogether, to get back to the casting part, was fantastic, right? Going back to episode 5, Richard E. Grant as classic Loki, dude. When he had his like moment of triumph, for glorious purpose at the end, I felt for the character, even though this was the first time I was being introduced to him. This was the way he acted that whole scene, raising Asgard in like an illusion trick and all that stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that character is really sad too, because he explains his whole story of how he just went off and was alone for like forever, and it really helps to motivate Loki and Sylvie as well, that they're a lot stronger than what they led themselves to believe, because he, over time sitting on that planet, just mastered that art of illusionary conjuring, right?
Yeah.
So Richard Grant, he did an amazing job. I actually liked most all of the alternate Lokis that ended up in the Void. Like, it was really interesting seeing all that. I do, however, think that they could have amounted to more, or been used for more. Like, I hate that they all kind of just started fighting each other, except for like these core 4 or 5, including the alligator. But I feel like all the Lokis could have come together to try and find a way out. But I mean, they served their story purpose for the one episode they were there. It was fun to watch too. So.
That's where, like, one of my critiques of the show is, even though I love episode 5 because it's so good, especially like the ending with Richard E. Grant, classic Loki, I do think it's probably just more like an MCU thing in general, which is like how they handle stuff, and rather than letting it be more interesting, sometimes they just go with like, oh, here's a joke, and then like that's the end of that. So like, I feel like they had more potential with this like President Loki, and like, I mean, he has like a group of like Ravagers and like, well, not Ravagers, but like Vikings and whatever the hell with him, mercenaries or whatever. He has I would like to learn more. Like, what's his story? Like what's the other story? But we just kind of got like a funny interaction and a mini fight scene, and then I was like, well, that's the end of that. And it was like, I kind of wish we had more. Like, that's why I kind of wish we had another episode at least, because it would have been more interesting to deal with this entire like setup with all these different Lokis more so than what we did.
Yeah.
But I also agree with the whole Richard E. Grant, like classic Loki, like that's basically like Loki's ceiling.
I liked all of them. I like boastful Loki, the kid Loki, classic Loki. They were all pretty good.
Hey, you they're all great.
Loki. Alligator Loki as well.
Yeah, he bit off the hand of presidential Loki.
And we have Throg as well. Throg.
The developers episode said they wanted to do more with him, but even throwing him in as an Easter egg was good enough. And the Thanos copter. They canonized the Thanos copter.
Yeah, so here's my problem with episode 5, right? Like, overall, it was pretty fun, but technically, it just felt like a bunch of Easter eggs thrown together. Yeah. And that's where I feel like it wasn't the weakest episode of the series. I think that's episode 3, but like, I think like it's like 2 weak episodes ish out of the entire 7 or 6 that kind of bring it down to me compared to like WandaVision, which to me there wasn't a weak episode. So I don't know, man. Like I love seeing all the Lokis. I did. It was fun, and all the Easter eggs. There's so many Easter eggs, right? You saw like the yellow jacket helmet, the Thanos copter,
Mobius, not Polybius. You saw Polybius in there too.
Yeah, you saw a bunch of like Easter eggs, which is cool for all the MCU people and the people who are like into the comics. But like, as a story serving purpose, it was decent, but not like strong enough compared to all the other episodes.
Yeah, well, going back to the other Lokis too, when they all like betray each other, it also showed that like the difference between like all the Lokis as well is because like this older Loki, he's more knowledgeable. Like he lived his life and he realized, yeah, I can go ahead betraying people, being like mischief, but like what will get to me at the end. And then with Kid Loki, he's just a kid, so like him like being like starting his mischievous phase, but then being thrown into TVA and then thrown into the void, he realized like okay, being a mischief isn't really all that's cracked up to be. So that's why I felt like these two were where they all just like, like they're like, all right, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna stop. While all the others Lokis who went their life being all mischievous and being like who they are personally, and then just like going to the void, like they grew up with it. They've realized like they been living like this. That's why they'll always like betray one another, like betray people, especially when it comes to each other, where like they won't be able to listen to one another, always be like, I need to be on top, I need to be mischievous. So that's why I kind of liked a little bit about this episode, because it shows that with the older Loki and kid Loki, like they changed because they realized something, while all the other Lokis, they lived their life but they never learned.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. Despite some of the negative feedback, and there definitely was a lot of fan servicey stuff in the first half of the episode, I still really liked episode 5, because by the end of it, I was like in full Kang the Conqueror mode. Like basically, that's the point of no return in the series, where I knew what was going to happen next, because you see Alioth. You see the door to what Chronopolis, or basically Kang's fortress at the end of time. Like, as soon as those kind of elements fell into place, as someone who's aware of the comics, I'm not like an ultra fan, but I essentially knew where it was going, and that got me like even more excited for the finale. So I definitely appreciated like the second half of episode 5.
I think I also like I said, the classic Loki. One thing I've noticed with this Loki, especially like looking a bit more into the comics, and then especially after this episode, is our Loki doesn't really know how to do much in terms of like his abilities at all. Like, and it's been a while, right? Like, we've known Loki since the first Thor movie, and he doesn't really know how to do like things that Sylvie can, or even like to the scale of like classic Loki. He's still really basically like infantile in terms of his in general abilities, which I think
His powers.
Yeah, because like I think the show like tries to put that to you as well with this, especially with episode 5. I think is kind of another point I think they try to make. It's like you're more powerful than you think. So I think we'll see, I think hopefully a different or slash more powerful Loki in Doctor Strange. But this Loki, I think is he's gonna be, weirdly enough, I think he's probably gonna be like an Avenger. like he's gonna be really powerful.
Well, he learned how to enchant, right, at the end.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like going off of what you said, Geek, it's like we throughout all these movies we saw like Loki uses like very limited powers, and we're just like, oh wow, this guy's really like powerful. But then like watching like all these other Lokis, or watching Sylvie and classic Loki, we realize that there's more to him than meets the eye, and he never realized that until now. And I actually like it. I also like this Loki too, because like now, like what you said, like we can see him like start changing his role. Instead of being like the stereotypical ha ha ha, I'm the bad guy, he can actually be not only like a part of the Avengers, but also help them in their ways, and like be a quote unquote good guy from now on, potentially. Or he might just still go back to the same roots and then still become a villain, which at this point we don't know. But we are like, I am kind of hoping like he becomes like a hero, or someone that can help save someone that can help the Avengers when it comes to stuff.
I mean, he's always seesawed back and forth, right?
Yeah, it's
not
like
even
an anti-hero is a good term.
Yeah.
I think he'll pretty much stay that, but he'll have more like good alignment from now on.
Well, the thing is, his motivation now is he wants to save the timeline, or save reality, right? So if those interests align with the Avengers, which I assume they will at some point, then sure, right? He'll help them out. But once he finishes that goal, we'll see what he wants to do. But as far as we know, his character development, like the one thing about the series I will give that I loved the most about it was the character development for Loki. That was the main purpose of it, right? We got the whole Kang setup, the multiverse stuff as a result of the series, which is good for everything else. But from beginning to end, like it was a well done series or TV show from the beginning to end. Where in the beginning was 2012 Loki, he wanted to rule stuff. And then throughout episodes 1 through 6, now he's just like, look, I just want to save reality. That's my main purpose now. I don't care about ruling a throne or whatever.
An interesting thing that nobody's really brought up yet is how Ravonna Renslayer at the end of the last episode.
I was about to say this too.
She's like, it's like, I'm leaving to go find free will, but then Sylvie kills Immortus, which means she's gonna end up finding Kang, which aligns with the comics as well, because Ravonna and Kang are actually in the comics like kind of a team for quite a while.
Well, they're married. They're actually husband and wife. Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how things turn up, because she's got her little, time PDA. She left. If she comes back to the TVA, it's going to be the Kang's version of TVA, right? So she's in for a nice shock as well here soon.
And I shout out Mobius for like that awful hand-to-hand combat that he tried to do. He's like, I'm not gonna. He's like, not if I don't let you. He turns it on. He just like tries to poke her and then gets instantly washed. I was like, okay, well,
that was like you versus Sub-Zero.
That one I picked Johnny Cage.
But that I'm also interested now is like, now that like the whole entire timeline changed, like reality, now I just can't wait for these next movies, because now these movies are going to be in this reality that Kang exists. So now I'm wondering how they're gonna how like stuff is going to change now throughout all these movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting too, as I mentioned earlier, that like they sort of combine He Who Remains with Immortus into one character. When in the comics they were separate, because He Who Remains created the Timekeepers in the comics, and the Timekeepers weren't even actual beings. Like, they were robots in the show. So they got rid of the Timekeepers, and they also got rid of He Who Remains pretty much in the show. They just replaced them both.
Which reminds me, like, okay, overall, why did we need, outside from the story beat of like the big reveal of Kang, like couldn't they have just cut out the Timekeepers and been like, Kang is the guy in charge, right? Like,
yeah, I think the only reason why they even did that is because the Timekeepers played like a semi-large role in the comics, and people would be kind of confused as to why they didn't show up here if they didn't at least talk about them or show them.
Yeah, but the biggest thing I always tell people is like, when you're adapting material from one medium to other medium, you're gonna have to make changes. So like, make this
they did make changes.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like, but your justification is to placate the comic readers, but it's like 95% of the people watching Loki have never read the comics, right? So like, they could have just, for story reasons, cut out the Timekeepers and put Kang in there. But I don't know. It's fine. It's just when you like really think about it logically, you're like, they could have just got rid of the Timekeepers and put Kang as the big bad dude from the beginning, right? But
yeah, I mean, another point also is that nobody, even Renslayer, knew like who was actually leading everything, right? The only person who, like, quote unquote, person who knew was Miss Minutes. She's not a person; she's just the system.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, I guess Renslayer already knew the Timekeepers weren't real, but I mean, she didn't know like who was actually behind everything, which is at the end, like, she was looking for the files, and Miss Minutes was like trying to keep her from finding out like what was going on.
Yeah, I remember that.
Miss Minutes was such a great little character, like side character.
One thing I wanted to rebuttal to you, Nolar, about getting rid of the Timekeepers. I think I agree with what you were saying, but I feel like in terms of like the story, at least from the way I interpreted it, was that, remember, this Immortus wasn't the quote unquote, either he was doing the necessary evil, quote unquote, but he wasn't Kang the Conqueror, right? Like, he wasn't. He didn't consider himself the bad guy, right? So he
said he was,
didn't really,
but he aged out of all that. Like, he got bored of it, because once you're immortal and you're living at the end of time, like, I don't know, you run out of shit to do, I guess. So he's like, all right, let me just manage this instead of destroying it at some point.
No, because remember, he stopped the war with Eliav, and then he was like, then to control everything, he made the TVA and made the Timekeepers. So I think it's more so, one, to hide himself, and two, a way to, like, again, kind of, I guess, make this false, like, leaders, right? Like, because he wasn't a bad guy, right? At least I didn't see him, or like, and he also didn't consider him that way. So I think that's why he made the Timekeepers, more so just to like make like false, like things for people to look for, like look as as a being. If you, I guess you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But
I
He
get it.
he basically took on the role of in order to fight a greater, like in order to fight evil, you have to be a greater evil in sort of a sense, if you get what I'm saying. Like he knew that if he were to leave everything unchecked, eventually it will all happen again, and maybe something even greater will happen. So he was like, okay, let me be that necessary evil in order to stop something like this, or something potentially even greater from happening and just completely destroying everything, and then obviously like having time repeat itself over and over again, essentially.
You're just watching Jonathan Majors emote through his like scenes is so great. It added so much energy to it. I loved it.
I recommend watching a film of his. I think it was Last Black Man in San Francisco. I watched that film and he was phenomenal in that movie. It was the first time I saw him. I can't wait to see more of him.
He's nominated for an Emmy for Lovecraft Country,
Lovecraft,
Best Actor.
Yeah.
So if he's nominated for that, you gotta know he's like, the casting for Marvel has always been on point, right? So I, for the most part, I believe for all their casts,
Yeah.
just
The
when you
craziest
have,
part
what-
about him
yeah, go ahead.
is no. It was just like the craziest thing about him is just that he's gonna be playing different versions of himself, and
Yep.
that's like this is like more like the guy that kind of snapped, and he's like kind of just, all right, you either kill me or what? I'm kind of bored. I'm like kind of losing my mind, but like I wonder how he's gonna play the Conqueror, right? Like completely different than what we get here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So,
I'm excited.
so what do we think's gonna happen with Sylvie in season 2? Because like, what even happened with her at the end of this one? Like, she kills him, and then what happens?
Yeah, I don't know.
She just sits. She just sits down.
I would expect hopefully some rude awakenings for her. Like, and I don't want her to get like killed or anything, but I mean, I enjoyed her character for what it's worth. Not as much as the original Loki, of course, but I would assume she's gonna have a comeuppance moment where she's like, "All right, I did the right thing," and then there's Kang, and she's gonna get her ass handed to her. That's what I would anticipate.
Do you think episode 1 is just gonna be like Kang coming and like flicking her into the corner or something?
Well, I don't know, because like I don't know if they're
Yeah.
gonna use season 2 of Loki to give the other Kangs more backstory and to flesh out what happens, or if they're gonna wait to do season 2 until like after Ant-Man, where he's been well established. Like I have no idea. Like they could be building this up to another Thanos moment where this is gonna last for the next like 5 to 10 years, or like, I mean, it'd be a lot of build up for Kang to show up in Ant-Man 3 and to get defeated. So I think
Yeah.
like,
Well,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you got to remember too. Like, it's just even if he does get defeated, it doesn't really end anything, right? Like, there could be a different Kang that shows up or something.
Right, I don't think they're gonna do
uh,
that trope too much. I think they hinted at that just to allude to there's gonna be one variant of Kang who's like super powerful and super evil.
I think if they're gonna introduce Kang as like a villain in the MCU, he is a big enough Avenger villain
Level
in
threat.
the comics to like warrant a as big of a saga as Thanos had as the main villain.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
he definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I definitely don't see him getting defeated in like Ant-Man 3 or like. Again, we don't know exactly his role. They just said he's in it. I
I
Well, he said he's
guarantee
the main
you,
villain. That's what
I
he's been-
guarantee you it will be very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where like Thanos was in the movie. He had like a few scenes in there, but Ronan was the main villain. And I think that's probably what will happen in Ant-Man 3.
Well, the
Yeah,
only rebuttal I have to that is he's been listed as the main villain of the film. But that just doesn't mean that they're going to win at the end. They might have another Infinity War moment where he shows up and the whole movie he's just like screwing everyone up. And by the end, like, it ends on like a weird note where he's the winner still. And then there's more after that, right?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
going back at the end of this episode, it's like I also have a feeling too. It's like I don't know if like season 2 will start off with this scene, or like maybe one of the MCU movies might do it. But I have a feeling it might just like end up where like they'll use the scene like alone when you see like Sylvie like feeling like, all right, I did something, and then like as she's sitting down, like in her thoughts, you hear the door open, and then boom, there's another version of him, and that's the Kang the Conqueror. That's going to be the main villain, and then just wiping the floor with her, and then her obviously either leaving or him capturing her and keeping her as like a captive, as a quote unquote like way to be like, hey, since you did this for me, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to keep you alive just so you can watch everything that's like happen because of the choice that you made, so to speak, in a way.
Yeah, not a bad idea. We'll see how they play it out, but I think he's going to be like Goresh said, he's that big of a villain character that they couldn't make him the next like phase 4 and 5 like main villain to defeat, right? But we won't know until the rest of the stuff plays out, because now we've got all the multiverse stuff to play with, right? So of course we've got the Spider-Man coming out. And then, of course, Eternals, right? The next, after Shang-Chi, it's Eternals, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, the Eternals stood by when the aliens invaded New York, when Thanos snapped half the world, or half the population, I should say. And they stood by, and now they're coming in. Is it because of Kang and the multiverse? Like, who knows, right?
They better explain that really well. Just a side note, they better explain that really well in the movies, because it's like yeah, half of the universe is gone, and like multiple times we could have helped them, but like nah. I'm like, yeah, 5 of the most powerful being like here or like beings in Marvel, not top 5, like really strong beings in Marvel. And they're just like, nah, they got it. Okay.
Well, that also leads me to another question though. Remember how we had like the Netflix shows like Daredevil, what was his
Punisher.
name? But yeah, Punisher.
Luke
No,
Cage.
not only Punisher, Luke Cage, and then Iron Fist. I think it was.
Defenders. Yep.
Yeah, the Defenders. It's like if Disney buy those like properties, or like is working quote unquote with Netflix? Is if they bought the rights, or if they're working with them, this can actually also tie in those other heroes from like, they could be like quote unquote from a different multiverse, as opposed to like the one that the main MCU is in, and they could potentially bring those guys in as well into this mainline multiverse. That could be another thing, along with not just the mutants and Fantastic Four, but the Defenders as well. I feel like
The
Well-
Defenders exist in the same timeline. Like Netflix didn't own it; they were just like, I think it was partners at the time for them to make the shows.
Producers.
They didn't own them. They're all in the universe. They're all in the same main MCU continuity. They're just not in the films.
Yeah.
Not yet, anyway. But they exist in the same timeline. The only rumor we have right now is that Matthew Cox is supposed to be in No Way Home as Matt Murdock, but that's just a rumor.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like Netflix still owns the production rights to it for another 2 years, I think. So even if Marvel, Disney wanted to use those characters, they would, for the next couple of years, they would still have to go through them. I think that's how it was. Either way, it's a little messy. And the thing is, I love the MCU, but the problem is there's so many characters and so many stories to tell that it's almost impossible to like really bring everybody in and really still care about stuff. Like if they brought in Daredevil, Kingpin, and all that stuff, it'd be cool, but they're not. We're now at a threat level that's like cosmic and like timelines. Why do I care about this street robber in like the Hell's Kitchen right now? You know what I mean? Like
I will also say, as somebody I'm not like a huge mega Marvel comics person. And I obviously know who like Iron Man, Hulk, like all the big name, main heroes of Marvel comics are. But like me personally, someone like me, like, am I going to be excited for Shang-Chi? No, the answer is no. So like, I don't know how they're going to build this up to be as exciting as it was during like the Infinity War saga. I don't know if it's even possible for them to do that without like the main cast they had back then, but I don't know. Cause like, again, for like someone like Shang-Chi, like I'm just not excited. I don't know, because I don't know who that is.
It's going to have a lot of Wang from the Doctor Strange movie in it. It's going to have Abomination in it. I'm excited for those reasons. But yeah, Shang-Chi definitely doesn't... it doesn't bring the levels of hype that like Loki, would. Or I would say even like the Hawkeye show would probably be a little bit more immediately identifiable than Shang-Chi.
which for the reason like because you guys don't know who they are, that's where they need to like market it and attack it from a different perspective, right? So like Shang-Chi, it's all gonna be like wushu martial arts fighting style. That's what gets me excited, because you put in a Marvel property with like, you know, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon kind of visuals, I'm all in. You know what I mean?
No, it's Wong, not Wang, by the way.
Wang.
No, it's Wong.
Wang. I call him Wang.
I agree with you, Nolar, because like my thing is like, I personally, I know we're at this cosmic level, but it's like the same way I feel about like some Spider-Man stuff. It's like I feel some of the smaller scale movies, I think like just to tell their own story for each character, like it doesn't have to like have crazy like like purpose. Like I kind of like when like Homecoming, like it wasn't like crazy implication. It was like him and the Vulture and, you know, like the Stark stuff, but it wasn't like what seems like the new stuff where it's like every time now there's a movie, it's like, yeah, the multiverse is in danger, you got space time, and it's like it's kind of like each movie is really turning into like mini Avengers movies, and it's like
Yeah, like a
that's
Civil
kind
War,
of
right?
yeah, where it's kind of like worrying me because like with the rumors of like, for example, Spider-Man, where there's like I don't know how many characters supposedly in that film, like 20. You have like 20 plus characters in that movie. You have different versions of a certain character, multiple. Then you have Doctor Strange with like Scarlet Witch, Loki, and then the multiverse. And it's like then you have Quantum Mania, which is also going to deal with Kang and the multiverse. It's like that's why kind of like I'm excited for Shang-Chi because it's more it's like obviously it's going to be a big scale because like there's some like, you know, there's some still cosmic stuff in there, like I think like the deity that he saw, like when he was like underwater. I forget who that was.
Think Foom.
I think it was him. Might be him. But like it's gonna have cosmic relevance, like, you know, some like maybe like hints and stuff there, but it's gonna be more small scale. And I hope in general the story's good.
It's gonna be more grounded,
but,
just like how Falcon and the Winter Soldier is setting up the next Captain America movie, as well as the Thunderbolts TV show with Thunderbolt Ross and his little Suicide Squad of villains like Baron Zemo. We're going to see him again there in the Thunderbolts probably. Those are like the more grounded earthly threats, while Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and, you know, Wanda, all these people are taking on the more cosmic threats.
There's so many characters they still have to show that they've teased so long. Like, remember when they teased Adam Warlock, like how many years ago?
Yep.
Like
Yeah, he was on an end clip
Guardians
of the
2.
Guardians. Yeah, Guardians 2.
Yeah, so
I mean,
we're still waiting for these characters they've teased so many years ago, and we're just like leapfrogging over them for new
with
movies
She-Hulk
coming out.
and
That was
Miss Marvel
potential fumble on their
Howard the
hands.
Duck? Come on, bro.
I would say that as of right now, I consider their handling of Adam Warlock a pretty much a fumble, because he was supposed to be heavily involved with Thanos.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was so confused. I was like, Adam Warlock, because he was like supposed to be like the main person with the Soul Stone, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was trapped in Soul World. He ends up getting out while Thanos is messing with the Gauntlet, and he basically aligns with the good guys and helps them defeat Thanos. Essentially, he even gets control of the Gauntlet for a little bit, and he kind of goes nuts. And
well, he's supposed to be like the most powerful person. Like, honestly, I think the reason why they made Captain Marvel so powerful is because they couldn't get him in time.
Yeah,
right.
Adam Warlock is significantly stronger than most every Avenger that we've seen so far.
Yeah, and I think they ended up making up that whole Soul Stone thing, like how to get it and like the Soul Stone realm and stuff like that. Well, they didn't make it up, but they sort of like finagled it to the way it was originally intended to be, because they just dropped the ball with Adam Warlock. Like, he was supposed to fulfill all the shoes that we saw with the Soul Stone.
Yeah, Soul Stone and Captain
I think
Marvel.
part of that, yeah, it's weird because like part of that maybe was when I think they that was the era where they fired James Gunn, and then DC got him for Suicide Squad, which I heard was great, so I can't wait to see that. But I think because he got busy with all that stuff during that era, I think they kind of screwed it up, because now Guardians 2 is how many years old now? Like 3, 4? And then we won't get the next Guardians till like 2024, I think, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Adam Warlock was teased like by the time the next Guardians movie comes out.
To be fair,
6 years ago.
I don't want to say to be fair, because that is James Gunn, but I think Taika Waititi is going to deliver like Guardians of the Galaxy 2.5 in the form of the
Thor,
next
Love and
Thor.
Thunder.
Yeah, they're gonna be involved.
Yeah.
If it unless the whole movie just focuses on Jane Foster and Thor's like really not in it at all, then they're gonna have to be in there because he's with them. So hopefully we get
Waikiki.
some Guardians 2.5
Waikiki.
mixed in with Thor.
Yeah, because
So-
the thing about Thor Love and Thunder is because the main villain of that is Gore the God Butcherer. So I also want to know what's going on with that as well, especially with it, like not only like Gore the God Butcherer, it's like Christian Bale, like this man is playing as him. So I want to know like how he'll portray like the character and how the character itself will it just be like a one and done just for the movie, or would he potentially be in like cahoots essentially, like they make their own like little band of villains, with Kang the Conqueror being a thing now. He might ask for the lend the hand of Gore, because Gore the God Butcher is very, very strong as a villain as well. So I want to see how that also plays out in the movies.
Hey, look, it entertains people, all right? Let me say my names the way I say my names. Leave Wang alone,
Why-
all right?
Yeah, that's fine, Nas, but not when you like butcher someone's real name.
I like the
Waikiki.
chat not knowing if I'm doing it on purpose or not. It pleases me greatly.
Waikiki the God Butcher. I would love Null, man. I would love Null.
I don't think
would,
that.
but-
Do you think they'll introduce Null and maybe that's why the Eternals and stuff are gonna show up as because realistically,
No.
when Gore steals the sword, Null gets stranded on a planet, kind of powerless for a little bit. So I don't know if Null is really gonna be referenced or not, because like Gore's got the sword at that point, and then Null gets stranded on a planet for like X amount of centuries until he figures out how to like just straight up manifest his powers directly without the sword and stuff or something.
I don't know. I mean, Null is a Marvel property, even though it's like a byproduct of Spider-Man in a way. It's a symbiote, right? He's a symbiote god or
he's just
king.
an eldritch god, and yeah, he's the father of all symbiotes. Yeah,
So I don't know if that's still tied up with the Sony deal or not, right?
and then
so who knows?
he in turn is only an avatar of Oblivion, who's the twin celestial brother of Eternity, and then that gets up to like living Tribunal levels up there and stuff. So
They did mention the Living Tribunal in Doctor Strange, didn't they?
they mentioned his staff. When they were doing their little training, Mordo was like, and along with having magical powers, we also guard magical artifacts. Like this one, the Staff of the Living Tribunal. And it like turns into that energy whip or whatever.
Yeah, so at least they mentioned him by name. So
There's actually an Easter egg maybe in The Void in episode 5. You see a depiction of the Living Tribunal. Let me see if I can find it real quick. and put it up on stream.
Please tag us on Twitter. Use the way God Butcher. Oh man. But also going back to Null as well. And with him being like basically like the eldritch god of the symbiotes and stuff like that. I think Sony still has like Sony still has like the rights to Venom, but I have a feeling they might give it just like do a partnership like they did with Spider-Man on this one as well to
Well, Venom falls under Spider-Man. Like Venom is not its own thing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Is the question is Null itself fall under Spider-Man, or is it its own thing? I don't know. I actually don't know.
I think it would, mainly because like
It's
for
a
example,
byproduct.
like yeah, because like
Yeah.
Galactus, right? For example, like there's like he doesn't exist currently in the MCU, and we all know why. It's because they didn't own Fox, right? At the time, like there's no mention of Galactus or
Yeah, I mean,
Reed
since then
Richards,
they haven't
nothing.
needed him for anything. Like, there's nothing in the current MCU that could stand up to Galactus. Even Captain Marvel would get slapped into another dimension by Galactus.
well, I mean, they did show Dormammu. Like he was like the main person.
Yeah.
Isn't Dormammu like even stronger than Galactus?
He's on the similar levels as Galactus, but they beat him with cheese, right? Like,
Yeah, they didn't really beat
Yeah.
him. They just
Doctor
shoot him
Strange was
off,
able
right?
to time loop him because the portal was open, so his Infinity Stone still worked in another dimension, and Dormammu's not familiar with time, so he got tricked. Like, they didn't fight him, they didn't win, they just tricked him.
Yeah, the MCU'd him with the whole like
But-
cut the bargain.
Yeah, so
If you all are
We-
looking
we
at
dork.
the Twitch stream right now, there's the on screen the
Oh, yeah.
leak, the teaser of the Living Tribunal that was in episode 5.
We Dork 1234 makes a good point. Null is part of the Spider-Verse, so technically that's still owned by Sony.
Yeah.
So there
Well,
it is.
But we might, but with with Loki how it ended, we might actually see it in general as well.
Well, that maybe, because that means that Marvel or Disney and Sony have to do another negotiation, right? Because the deal's done, right? After Spider-Man No Way Home, the deal's done.
Didn't they say they had established a better partnership and that Sony was going to be more liberal with letting the MCU use Spider-Man, though? I feel like I read that in an article somewhere.
with Spider-Man, yes, but not like the Spider-Verse in general. I don't.
Yeah,
think.
because they still want to have their own Sinister Six. They still want to have Venom and Carnage, right? So like, if they own the rights to it, they'll make the movies and whatever. The only thing they have right now is live action Spider-Man. Disney can use it. Sony still reaps the production, or the not production, the
Box office?
producing. Yeah, they get part of the money, or they take all the money on the box of not all, but a good chunk of the box office on that end. So like, it's a very different deal than normal, because normally, like, Disney owns most of the production and distribution. That's what it is, distribution rights. So Sony owns the distribution rights for any Spider-Man stuff produced by Disney. Like, and part of that deal is Disney gets all the merchandising. So any toy I buy for my little nephew that has Spider-Man on it, that's going straight to Disney, not to Marvel, not to Sony. But in turn, Sony owns all the they own all the animation rights to Spider-Man. Yeah, they cross-license it to Disney Plus, but that's still owned by them. So when that deal's over, it'll drop off Disney Plus and go to Sony. But Sony doesn't want to have their own streaming service, so they'll probably keep that around forever.
Well, I mean, you also remember that Spider-Man's also in What If, and that's not a Sony thing. So it's like, I don't know if their deal changed at all, because Spider-Man is in What If, and I don't think he would be if, like, at least in my opinion, the way I see it, I don't think he would be in What If they weren't going to keep him around for long.
Oh, someone in the chat mentioned the Beyonder. That's Goresh's favorite character to talk about.
He's just so stupid. Like, he should never have existed. He's actually like the second strongest character in the entire universe, other than like the one above all, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they had to nerf him and create the Beyonders that were much weaker to deal with the problem they created.
Yeah, because wasn't there a big hoopla like last year about like Sony ending their thing, or like because they got a like route like thing, but I think they fixed it and they like extended it.
Yeah, because I feel like, because if anything, like Sony will actually be at a better standing if they were to let Spider-Man, and like if they were to deal with this deal, like they'll be at a better standing to let Spider-Man stay in the MCU, as opposed to maybe even Venom or like any of the symbiotes and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a little bit...
Yeah, so it's not really about standing. 'Cause it's all about the money, right? Like in the end,
No,
it's all
that's
about money, right?
that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like they'll be like with money value is trying to get at.
Yeah, but like Super Saiyan Jake the Snake here, like no matter what, Sony's gonna make a ton of money off of Spider-Man. Yeah, to be fair, all right, I love the MCU Spider-Man, but the best Spider-Man movies are Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 1 from the Raimi trilogy.
Tobey Maguire,
Yeah, to me. And then even then, Into the Spider-Verse could be up there as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those were all Sony-produced movies. Those weren't Disney-produced movies. So say what you want, like Disney should own everything. No, I mean, some people make better movies than other people. Like Fox, when they own X-Men, the first 2 X-Men before Spider-Man came out, like, well, around that time, around the same era, those were amazing movies. Like, I still contend X-Men 1 was the reason we have the MCU today as they see it. Right?
Same with Blade. I agree. Like the first
So-
Blade.
And I mean, honestly, the Blade series, like, the third one sucked. Second one was okay. First one was pretty decent. for
Blade
what
was
it
a different
but, like,
breed. It was rated R and stuff. That was
Yeah.
an earlier time.
Yeah, when rated R wasn't a big deal. But yeah, for the most part, like, Sony owning Spider-Man isn't a bad thing, like, at all. because like we wouldn't have Into the Spider-Verse. Like they're the ones that came up with that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
not everything you produce is going to be a massive hit. Let's just be honest, right? Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 1 was actually pretty decent. But like the Raimi-verse, the first two, yeah, like top-notch Spider-Man. I don't think those will ever be top to me.
Yeah, Spider-Man 3 could have been great if it was Spider-Man 3 and 4 and not just all mashed into one movie, and they had better casting. Like Sandman was good. I didn't mind the casting on Sandman at all.
I like the way they did Sandman there.
But then Topher Grace as Eddie Brock made me want to tear my own head off. Like,
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so
I like
sorry.
Topher Grace too. He's a great actor. He's just not Eddie Brock.
Yeah.
Like I even enjoyed Topher Grace in the Predators movie and that '70s show. He's great, but not Eddie
like
Brock.
the pacing in like Spider-Man 1 and 2 were very well done. Like you got so much character development. You got to understand the villain like more and more. And when it came to Spider-Man 3, you're like, hey, here's Sandman. Hey, here's Venom. Hey, here's Hobgoblin.
I have to
hey, guess what?
I have to correct someone in the chat real quick because they're saying the Fantastic Four was so bad by Sony they bombed it, but that I believe was actually Fox.
That was Fox.
Yeah, it's not
That was
Sony.
Fox, not Sony.
And yes,
Yeah.
Fox did completely botch every Fantastic Four they've tried to do so far. Which
I don't know how, man.
It's honestly Marvel and the MCU would have done something with the Fantastic Four already. Like they would be in the MCU right now. I'm 100% confident they would be if Disney didn't want to wait and distance themselves a little bit and let Fantastic Four air out because of how badly Fox botched it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to speak more like on the multiverse of Spider-Man stuff because, like, considering what is rumored to happen with No Way Home and the casting and whatever for No Way Home, that I don't know. To me, that just bleeds like because, like everyone said and everyone knows, like Sony, whenever a Spider-Man movie comes out, it's gonna make near $1 billion. Like every Spider-Man movie is like is a cash cow. And if you have what they're quote unquote gonna have, like what's gonna happen, I won't say because of spoilers and wait for the trailer and all that shit. But all the rumors about No Way Home, this movie is gonna probably like, especially with everyone waiting to see like a big budget movie in theaters again. No Way Home is gonna crack like it's gonna be over $1 billion, dude. So I don't think they're gonna leave the MCU soon, and I think them opening up the multiverse stuff, I think that just widens everything, like with Venom and all that stuff. Like that's probably maybe just a separate universe that they'll probably never talk about. But like if they do need to bring it up, they'll be like, hey, yeah, this is Eddie Brock from Universe 52. I don't know. But like they'll probably exist if any time Marvel's like, hey, yeah, we want Venom, and then it's like, okay, well here's Venom.
Yeah.
So, it's like what they're doing with Deadpool. Like Deadpool literally never existed, but like he just had a crossover with Korg. Like
we know they're bringing him into the MCU.
Yeah, so it's like
Potentially,
like they could just exist somewhere, but with all this multiverse stuff, that's why multiverse is kind of cheap, but also like reliable for like making stuff because you can just say like, yeah, Deadpool existed. He was just in this universe. Now he's here.
I don't think they're gonna do that. I don't think they're gonna go the cheesy route and abuse the concept of the multiverse. I think it's gonna be pretty linear and fairly well focused to this next like plot line they're trying to follow. I don't think they're just gonna cheese out and be like, oh, this other stuff's all just alternate universes. They're not gonna pull it Star Wars Disney. I think they learned their lesson.
Okay.
I hope.
Here's the thing. I personally think Doctor Strange 2 is going to close up all the multiverses. Like, I think that's the purpose of that movie.
Yeah,
so like
Scarlet Witch's Nexus power, and well, if that comes before Ant-Man 3, we're still gonna have the Kang stuff to deal with.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Feel like but for the Multiverse of Madness, I feel like it'll just like it won't necessarily close out, but I think it'll just I feel like it might change it in a certain way.
I have a feeling. I have a different feeling. I feel like Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch are going to be like in over their head and dealing with like Nightmare or something, some other significant threat that's a parallel to the whole multiverse problem, because that movie's being touted as like they're still advertising that as like the first horror movie for the MCU. Like,
well, it's directed by none other than Sam Raimi, right?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
took
Yeah.
over when I don't know if the other dude was Gareth Edwards or who it was, but there was some other director, and he had a
Yeah, Gareth Edwards.
It was, yeah,
Yeah,
and
he
he
was
had
supposed to be.
disagreements because he wanted it to be even way darker
More
than
horror.
what Disney
Yep.
was allowing.
Yeah.
So they're like, no, this isn't the right vibe. Let's get Sam Raimi to do it.
This might be wrong, but like I'm just like looking up like Multiverse of Madness, and apparently Tobey Maguire's supposed to be in it. I don't know if that's wrong.
It's all
or what.
rumors.
Yeah, it's rumors at the moment, right? Yeah, but like
Yeah.
that's a little weird.
Well,
But
we
then
know
what-
that Doctor Strange is going to be in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So assuming Doctor Strange works with some of the alternate Spider-Mans, because I'm assuming he's going to charter like all three of them to go around and round up the escaped multiverse Spider-Man villains. He's going to be on a familiar basis with all three of them, so it's entirely possible that he enlists the help of one of them to then, or even more realistic, the end of Spider-Man is probably going to have a stinger for Doctor Strange, where
I like how
at the
I
end of the
purposely
movie,
avoided
Doctor
this
Strange,
topic.
Scarlet Witch, and one of the Spider-Mans get
Yeah.
like sucked into an alternate dimension or something.
Yeah, because
I
the thing
purposely avoided this whole thing, and Iz was just like, "Yeah, let's just talk about it," because
because
Whatever.
there's one other looming fact that like I also want to like try to understand too, is because like when it comes to Spider, like when it comes to Spider-Man in general, like he has his own Spider-Verse, and we have Madam Web for that. Now I just want to know, I just want to understand if like with this MCU, if that whole entire thing is just like thrown out the window, or if they might incorporate that as well into like some of these multiverses in general. You know, that's what I'm trying to. I want to try to understand that. Like, like if they were to do it, like how they would to do it is like in like this MCU format, quote unquote.
The Madam Web stuff.
Yeah, Madam Web, because she is like the keeper. Like she's essentially
Yeah.
the keeper of the Spider-Verse
But-
in general.
But Sony, I think you're mixing the two up because that's a Sony thing, right?
Yeah. Well,
So-
the spider like thing, but that's what I'm like. It's essentially what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
So this is why I think this is more evidence of Sony just not taking part of the MCU deal anymore with Disney, because if in this last one in No Way Home and then Multiverse of Madness, let's say it's not to shut down the multiverse like a lot of you guys are saying, what if it keeps it open? Well, that's a whole opportunity to take Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, not Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland Spider-Man, and throw him strictly on Sony's movies in their own Spider-Verse. And that's how we lose Spider-Man out of the MCU. Like, that's an explanation. Not a good one, but that's one that they could go with. And then, bam, Sony's got Tom Holland, the popularity from MCU. People kind of still associate him with that. And they're going to have their own Madam Web, multiverse, or Spider-Verse version. And Sony pops off with some really successful movies and series, right? Like, that's how this like more evidence to me that this would give Sony the reason to not sign another deal.
For me, the way
Yeah.
I see it is just their way of saying, "Hey, we can make multiple live-action Spider-Man movies now." The way I see it, because I mean, now that we're talking about it, is SMH, but if they have Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in this film as Spider-Man, Peter Parker, right, different versions, I think this, to me anyway, just says like MCU Spider-Man is gonna keep doing shit, and then maybe he'll have interactions with other Spider-Man. But I do think that they're going to like if they give the opportunity, then maybe they'll just make other like continue Tobey's series or continue Andrew Garfield's series at that point after branching out from a super successful movie.
I'm
Right.
Yeah.
I'm in a similar
Yeah.
spot, but of a different mindset. And without saying anything about any movie in particular, I just think Sony, it's in their best interest to keep cooperating with Disney and Marvel. Like, it's only going to open
yes and
more
no.
doors for them than if they try and pull back and keep it
Here-
exclusive.
Okay, I think we can all agree about this. It's about money, right? So right now, I think Sony gives 25% to 30% of the box office to Disney, or Disney takes 25 to 30% and gives the rest to Sony, whatever the case may be. They split the money. So if they make $1 billion, they're still getting 70, 80% of that. But what if instead of making $1 billion and splitting it, they earn $900 million by themselves? I think that's a better deal, right?
But I
So-
think that the versatility of being able to trade characters back and forth with Disney and Marvel, I mean, they could go off into isolation and be greedy, but I think they stand more to gain by keeping the partnership open and the door open.
I agree with you there, but if the numbers don't turn out that way, if Sony thinks they can earn, like here's the thing, if Sony thinks they can earn $1 more on their own without earning or partnering with Disney, they will do it. That's just bottom line business, right? And it sucks for the fans, it sucks for us, but like that's just how it is. So I agree with you. The opportunities are there, but are the numbers there? I don't know. And that's why, like, I don't blame Sony for wanting to jump out. Even when Disney was like, even when they had that spat like a year ago, 2 years ago, when like the whole licensing thing was happening, it was well reported that Disney's the one that wanted more money on their end. But they don't own the rights. It was coming strictly from Sony. Sony's like, look, I'll give you a little bit more, but you're asking for too much. And then there comes a point where they're like, no, that's too much money. Like, we can't give up that much. So that's what I'm saying is, like, if they could earn $1 more, I'd do that deal. I would, like, break the deal and make that money on my own. But, because, like, in the end of the day, it's all about money and capitalism, right? So,
Yeah, the mouse.
That's
really
why you
wanted
have three
that.
different. That's why you have 3 different Spider-Man movies going at the same time, Nolar.
Well, yeah,
of
but
course.
then
And
in
Spider-Verse,
Sony's eyes,
boom.
under what Nolar just described, that they would own all 3 of those Spider-Mans and they could make the money off all 3 of them, and not Disney.
yeah, Disney wouldn't, like, Disney right now only earns money off of Tom Holland, right? Everything else, like Madam Web, Into the Spider-Verse, Sony pockets 100% of that. So, if like this multiverse of with Spider-Verse thing with Madam Web, if they think that they could earn, like, I don't know, $800-900 million by themselves instead of earning $1 billion but splitting that with Disney, I would rather take the former rather than the latter, right?
That also like it also just like opened like a little bit of like a thought in my head too. It's like if they were to do this, like say like with No Way Home, like opening up the multiverse and stuff like that, and they could potentially do something like this. They can actually like Sony can give like the Tom Holland version of Spider-Man to Disney,
No,
like
they won't do that.
do that percentages.
No,
Like
no, they won't do
They
that.
won't do that.
No, but I'm saying like, but open up the other Spider-Man and then still make movies of
They're
Spider-Man
not
with
going to do
different
that.
versions.
Because
No.
realistically, even though Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire agreed to come back to do this for money, I'm pretty sure their heart's not in it for the long haul. Like, there's no way they're going to sign back up to keep doing this. First off,
Maybe
like
Andrew Garfield, maybe, but not Toby. I don't.
Tobey
think.
Maguire is just too old, to be frank with you guys. Like, they can digitally de-age him some, but he's just too old at this point. And Andrew Garfield had a really bad rep with Sony. Like, they did not like him. But I think they see dollar signs in their eyes right now, and they're willing to forgive that. Maybe if
Well,
he
to be
conducts
fair,
himself
yeah.
better, he could come back. But
I think to be
I-
fair with that, they kind of f***ed Andrew Garfield in that, and that
Yeah, they
wasn't
did.
his fault.
well,
Like he loved being Spider-Man, but they're like they f***ed it up on their own production side.
that's
That
not what
wasn't
I
his
heard.
fault.
I heard there was a bunch of meetings and staff stuff and guest appearances he was supposed to do, and he just was late, didn't do it, skipped it, wouldn't show up, was combative about schedules.
I know, because like the thing about Andrew Garfield too, it's like he legitimately loved, like he's like gone on like some like interviews like when it was making, like he grew up loving Spider-Man. So I don't think it was just like him like being the difficult one. It might have been just Sony like in general being.
I'm
the
just
one
saying
that-
that's not what I heard. And I just usually, when it comes to people saying certain actors are kind of iffy to be around, I tend to believe it. But, it might not be fully true. It could have been both parties are guilty and throwing shade at one another.
Can
Yeah.
you guys imagine like the multiverse of movies gonna be like Spider-Man parentheses the Tobey Maguire one, Spider-Man
Yeah.
parentheses
I
the
don't even
Andrew
want to see
Garfield
that.
one,
That's just
Spider-Man
that's just
parentheses
gross-
Tom Holland.
That's just
Like,
gross greed for them just overdoing
As long
it.
as we get pizza time in all those universes,
Dude,
that's good enough.
yes.
One quick thing. Ducky's saying, would you rather have Sony or Marvel and Kevin Feige running? All right, here's the thing. Here's my thing. Kevin Feige has like accomplished a lot at Disney, and I think he's primed to leave at some point. Or not by leave, I mean go up the ranks where he's no longer creative director of all of Marvel projects. Like he'll go up to a better position. Maybe be a CEO of, I don't know, Paramount or some other studio, because he's proven as much as he can as being as a creative director, right? I mean, now he's probably doing it for the love of it, but if there's an opportunity for him to leave, there's a good chance he'll leave. So, to me, I wouldn't like keep this notion that Kevin Feige is going to be around to shepherd everything. He's probably got good people under him, and I think the quality will be there. But as we already saw with Disney, the new CEO is not. He's all about the money side. He's like the MBA dude. He's not about the creative stuff. So the Disney movies from the next like 2-3 years are going to change significantly. Whether that's going to have an impact on Marvel, probably not as long as Kevin Feige's there. But that's the thing. If he's going to leave at any point, that quality control is probably going to be gone. So
we still have Favreau as the last fallback there, but yeah.
Yeah, but then Favreau could get poached for another job, right? Maybe like you don't know how things are going to play out because people's intentions or what they want out of things are going to change. Yeah, it'll be a sad day if Feige leaves, but I consider that an inevitability. I just don't know when it's going to happen. So
also, doesn't Sony make the Spider-Man movies? Like Sony makes them, but like Marvel's like they're obviously like maybe like whispering in their heads, like maybe do this.
Yeah, so
depends which one.
So no, Disney writes the scripts. Sony produces the standalone ones, like the No Way Home, all those they produce, right? They pay for all of that. But when it comes to the MCU, when he goes into like Civil War, Infinity War,
that's different,
Disney pays for those. But no matter what, Sony gets distribution rights altogether because Sony owns production and distribution. So when Sony makes the Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, they got to pay for all the actors, all that stuff, and they reap the benefits of using Disney's script writers and storytellers to make that. And then the distribution is they earn a good chunk of the money. Of course, Disney gets a kickback for it, right? Whatever percentage they worked out. But when it comes to the MCU stuff, the Disney produces that, and Sony gets a cut because Disney is the one. Yeah, they're lending him the characters, so they just get a cut from that portion. They're not going to get. It's not a huge portion, but it's something better than nothing, right? So that's how that the deal is worked out right now.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Tying this back to Loki, I don't think we're going to see Kang at like literally when they say he's going to not show up again until Ant-Man 3. I don't think we're going to really see too much of him at all. Like even necessarily rumors of him in Spider-Man or Doctor Strange. Really, Doctor Strange they might have little stingers at the end for him in the Ant-Man movie, but I would highly suspect that both of those movies are going to be more so contained to dealing with a more immediate threat that's a result of the splitting of the timelines.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
the closing of all these timelines and dealing with Kang is going to start with Ant-Man 3 and progress over another few movies or TV shows.
I don't think we'll see like a next Avengers movie till like 2025 or something. It's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it'll be a bit. That's for sure.
Because like, literally everything is setting up like this new like generation. Like even Black Widow, which even though I'm not the biggest fan of the movie, like that movie really did just feel like a setup for like things to come, right? Like more like different people to show up and stuff. And that's what I think all these shows are doing, right? It's their way of introducing the multiverse like a lot, like all at the same time, which I think they realized that they couldn't do with just like 1 or 2 movies a year. So like, okay, well, let's have all these shows on Disney Plus and all that.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool if we do see more Baron Mordo in Doctor Strange 2. He's definitely one of the characters that was fairly influential that hasn't popped back up in quite a while.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, I think most of us have seen all the Disney Plus series so far, right?
Yeah.
I've only seen Loki. I didn't really care about the other ones.
Okay.
I never finished Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I know the ending, and from what I saw, like I wasn't a huge fan of Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was okay.
Again, yeah, that one's just much more grounded, whereas Loki and WandaVision are much more cosmic in nature.
Well, I was gonna ask if for those who saw all 3 or generally understood it, how would you rate the 3 we have so far?
I would definitely rate Loki the best, and WandaVision probably second, and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier third for now. That's just because the current atmosphere of the Marvel movies is really pushing this whole cosmic stuff, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier really had nothing to do with the plot development we're seeing right now. It's kind of like it felt very ancillary to this new major plot they're building. It was still a great show, but it just didn't really move things forward on this side of the spectrum we're on right now. So I think it's the odd one out for now. So definitely Loki
Yeah.
is the best.
What like WandaVision did like WandaVision like set up something to be like even greater, especially like setting up Scarlet Witch as a character in general. Like that show did very well. Like that show like was like hyping up Falcon and Winter Soldier. It kind of felt just like it kind of just like went stagnant because it wasn't really, you know, we weren't really delving too much into like different stuff. The only thing they really set up was obviously like, you know, the new Captain America, and at the end of that show it was like his name was Agent, right? Like I forgot his name, like
U.S. agent.
yeah, like it's set up for like U.S. Agent as a character, and that's pretty much what really went on. And then Loki out here just like blowing those two shows out the water, with just let alone just 6 episodes and setting up for like all these different movies and like just like the MCU in general, like for the movies and shows from here on out, it really like set a high bar for that. So like for me, it'd be like Loki would be my top. WandaVision would be like second, and then like Falcon and Winter Soldier will be right now at my third out of all those shows.
I probably. I mean, again, I have to finish Falcon and Winter Soldier, but the reason, I mean, I pretty much have the same list as these two. I think the reason why I have it over WandaVision is mainly the finale of WandaVision. It's not even like the Mephisto stuff, and I just think some choices in WandaVision were a little weird, and just like it's obviously like Easter eggs for maybe fans, but like I kind of, again, it's more so just me annoyed with a lot of the way the MCU handles like stuff by either making it like a dick joke or just something like, oh yeah, you thought this was Quicksilver? No, it's Ralph Boner. It's like, okay, cool. Then the finale to me, like while it was cool seeing her get her full powers, it just felt very like cliche. Like I don't know, like especially with all the talk about grief and overcoming it and all that. Like I thought the ending would have been like different, but it was just very samey with like just big CGI fight in the sky, and I thought it was kind of like for me underwhelming, which is why I love Loki, because the finale was different, because people will complain about it too, but like I love that Loki and Immortus and Sylvie just talked, right? He kind of gave it. Granted, it was a big exposition dump, but it was the way Jonathan Majors acted, the setting, the cosmic like significance of it, the characters that we grew with. I really thought like it played with their concept, right? Because they were there to kill him, but then Loki, like, you know, Tom Hiddleston changed because of this talk, and I really like that aspect of it, rather than it just being.
He's like, I'm a liar, and I know I can tell he's not lying.
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
pretty much.
It was cool because it was like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna fight this big bad Kang the Conqueror or you know whatever. It was very interesting in terms of like character insight, especially because the show is about Loki. So that's why I vastly prefer the finale of Loki over WandaVision stuff.
Yeah, like you said, it didn't end in a big CGI fight. It wasn't the typical superhero pinnacle trope, right?
Yeah, because people were, because like the thing is, people were speculating, oh, Kang the Conqueror, he's gonna be evil, he's gonna have like, we're gonna have to see this like, you know, giant fire, what's gonna happen, and it's just like, no, that's not what exactly happened. It really threw a lot of people for a loop, because now it just shows that like the Loki, like just like having that ending is now what sets for this, you know, big bad villain. And then going off what Omega said, it leaves off on a cliffhanger where you don't know what's going to happen next, and that's what I loved about Loki, because like it left me wanting more. And now I'm just like, okay, well now I want these movies more than ever, as opposed to WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's like, okay, cool, they had an ending, that's it. Like, well, I wonder what's gonna happen next.
I think that significance is reflected in the fact that this is the first show that's got a season 2 announced.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. But again, like I said, it ends off on that cliffhanger, and now like it, like I really want to see what's gonna happen next. Like I remember waking up, and then I go on Twitter and I just see very geek tweets after the Loki finale. I want Ant-Man 3 now. Like that, I was like, okay. And then once I watched that, I was the exact same way. I was like, yeah, I want the next movie. So like, yeah, come on, like time cannot be moving more faster at the moment.
What about you, Nolar? What's your answer?
Well, Goresh he's only seen Loki, so obviously that's one for him. Okay. Just to clarify, WandaVision was always been a limited series. There wasn't going to be season 2. It's not a TV show. It's just that's it. Yeah. Same with Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's defined as a limited series. They never said Loki was a limited series. So the assumption was it was always going to be a season 2. So the endings are different. The way they handle the endings are different in that regard, if that makes sense. So like the finale of an ongoing series, there's always going to be a cliffhanger, so it makes you want more. In this case, it's intrinsically tied to the MCU, so you're like, I want to see the movie. Great marketing, right? Like it's just brilliant marketing. But with WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, that's it. This is the story. That's the end. So for me, this is going to sound a little weird. I thoroughly enjoyed Loki. I would say it's third, maybe probably second, because I actually like character development more than big action sequences. So like I think Geek turned me from putting Loki from third to second. Falcon Winter Soldier would be third, but WandaVision to me is probably first overall. I know it's probably weird, but to me it was just like the story's complete for WandaVision. Of course they set stuff up later, but in terms of like Wanda dealing with her grief, like that was awesome, right?
There's
Loki,
something to be said about like just self-contained stories. Like just to piggyback off a little bit what you said, and I don't mean to interrupt, but it's like I don't like Loki mainly because it's set up. I liked it because like the general story, that even though it's not done, I do like
the story was good.
World more. But when there are, like I mentioned there earlier, talking about like instead of having all cosmic stuff, self-contained stories are generally like what I like as well. So I like that's why I just want to like mention to chat, like you have to have some value into like something that has a beginning and an end, because that was the point of the show, not to just overstay its welcome.
Yeah. So no, that's fine. And there was one last point I had to bring up afterwards. You reminded me, was just Loki set stuff up. I thoroughly enjoyed Loki's character arc. I thought it was great. But the problem why I was going to put it third was I felt there were 2 weak episodes, episode 3 and 5. 3 could have been, you could have been told, hey, all the TVA are variants. And that's it. That's all you really needed to know, right? There wasn't much, like the beginning to end, there wasn't a lot done. And then episode 5 was a bit better, where the ending was great with classic Loki, but the whole multiple variants of Loki's there. I mean, I see a purpose to it, but it's kind of weak to exist. So that's why I would say, like, as a whole series, like the strength of it all from beginning to end, Loki's probably the weakest compared to Falcon and Winter Soldier. At least it was mediocre throughout. Like it stayed middle throughout, more or less.
Stayed mid.
Okay. While Loki had high points and had low points, and to me, the low points bring it down a little bit, which is why I was going to be at a third. But you convinced me that it should be second. So there's my rankings there. So
let's just give our own like critiques. I guess anyone can start. I guess I'll start. I guess again the same point for me was just I think the like kind of what Nolar said was like the episode 5. While I thought was really really cool, I do think that should have been split into at least another episode to give it more oomph, because it was just like half it was like Easter eggs, and then the second half was like very cool. Oh, now we have plot progression with Alive and all that. I think they should have focused a little bit more on the thing, but I guess they used Alive as a way to just rush things in that episode. Easter eggs were cool, but I think that episode should have been stretched out, or that concept of him being trapped there should have been stretched out a little bit more. Episode 3 as well, like it could have just, I know it was mainly probably just to give more character development to Sylvie and Loki's relationship in general. Which again, the entire show, it's weird the way they're handling it, but it's mainly about Loki's like acceptance of himself and they're kind of doing that by having Sylvie a variant of himself, and like him learning to like self-love himself again, because you know that's kind of what the whole episode 1 and 2 are about, like him breaking out of his like shell of like or like ego and all that stuff. So I think it was neat for that, but in general, like the plot progression there wasn't really much. But aside from that, oh, we didn't even talk about it, but the music, I thought the music was phenomenal in Loki. Like the intro
Score was
theme and all the like the score was super good.
Yeah,
Loki.
I like the music and all the like the visuals. Like they're making the TVA, you know, kind of have that retro. Not as much as like WandaVision did when it started, but they had that retro-esque aesthetic for the TVA, and then that very synthy music, like synthwave styled music. Yeah, I love both all the aesthetic choices of the show. I really liked. There's also like a lot of different use of like color filters and warmth. Like there'll be entire shots that have like a blue shade, a green shade, a pink shade, like all these different tints, and it was very well put together.
For me, I feel like again, like going off like what Geek also said, I feel like if they should have at least like in general for me though, they should have just like at least added like an extra episode just to give more of a character development, more of like to like Loki and the TVA, just like one more episode of just like that banter and stuff like that. Or when he was stuck in the void, like flesh it out a little bit more and to give more like in-depth like character development, not only with just Loki, but with the other with classic Loki and Kid Loki and Alligator Loki. It's just I felt like that could have been done a little bit more because don't get me wrong, like I loved Alligator Loki, but like at the same time, I'm just like, why is he here? Like, why is Alligator Loki here? Like, it made no sense to me, and it's just like I felt like that could have been done a little bit more better, especially like with the whole entire like President Loki, where it would have showed like him like scheming to like kill all these other Lokis and stuff like that. I just feel like one more episode would have at least sufficed a little bit better in like to my understanding of just of setting up for the void, because like we never like thought like pruning, oh, the person died, but no, they're in the void. It's like, okay, cool, can we get more knowledge about the void, like more stuff about it? No, here's a ton of Easter eggs, have fun. And that was just it. That was literally the episode. Oh yeah, here's a plot point at the end of the episode. That's it. It's like it felt kind of like meh to me. But other than that, like I really did enjoy like a majority of the episodes, even though 3 was like kind of my all-time least favorite out of this season alone.
I'll tell you why we didn't have another episode, because they couldn't afford Richard Grant again. So they're just like, let's just do the
Sure.
one.
He was too pricey for him.
Expensive, you know?
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with the show at all. I think, again, the only thing that I would have changed was the way Sylvie acted at the end of the last episode. It wasn't consistent with her character throughout the entire show. So that's it.
Likewise, I really thoroughly enjoyed like every aspect of the show, even episode 3 and 5, which people said they didn't really like. I still enjoyed those. I will say that not really anything. I can't even say that because so much awesome stuff happened in episode 3. Like for me, seeing Loki on the train while they were trying to get to the spaceship was one of the greatest sequences for his character development that I think you guys who are talking badly about that episode are sleeping on. Like, this whole time, this is the Loki that came right from the Avengers movie. He wanted to kill everybody. But then on that train ride, he's like singing that old Norse song and smashes his glass and says another. And it really shows like how much he actually like cares about his family and he loves Thor. Like that's the exact same thing Thor did in 1 when Thor's on Earth and he smashes the coffee cup and he's like, this drink was great, another, and smashes it. Like it really just, I don't know, it gets really deep inside of his character and it shows a lot of awesome things. So I enjoyed the entire show. I wouldn't change a thing about it. My only critique that I could come up with, that's not a negative, but I just wish we had more of Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson together on screen. Like a whole nother episode of more of them, and I would have liked the show even more. But I wouldn't change anything about it, really.
Yeah, overall, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed the show. Episode 3 and 5 were a little weak to me. I mean, they're still good. Like, don't get me wrong, they're still very good, but it could have improved. The one thing that I did not like, and then it happened at the end, was the whole like, will they, won't they hook up Loki and Sylvie kind of thing. I like the concept of Loki trying to trust himself and trust others, and get to know like that intimacy, that intricacy, but doesn't have to be romantic. And they kind of took it a turn towards the end. That's why the kiss was weird to me.
Oh,
that's why I didn't like it.
That's perfect for his character, bro. What's the most ultimate narcissistic thing that you could do besides fall in love with yourself, bro?
Yourself. No, I understand that, but like I was hoping it would just be like, I need to trust someone as opposed to take it into romantic stance.
The way I saw it was just to get him off guard so that she could push him into the portal.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me
Goresh, yeah.
Okay, so there's overtones of romantic stuff. The main thing to me was, I agree with you, where she did that to be like, I'm sorry, this is the end. Like, this, I'm going to quote unquote betray you. She didn't really betray him, but to him it did, because like the perfect part of Tom Hiddleston's acting was when he stood there or sat there for like 10 seconds, and you could see the expression on his face. He's like, well, the one person I trusted like didn't fell through, and now things are gonna go to hell real quick, right? So like, perfect acting on his part. But like that kiss itself, to me, it just, this whole last like 4 or 5 episodes was overtones of romanticism, and there's like, the internet was going, oh, I shipped them together and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, nah, I just would keep them like, hey, this is the opportunity for him to learn to trust, try to convince another Loki variant to trust as well. And that's where the tension was, right, in that last episode, is that he was willing to change in order to do for the better, but Sylvie couldn't, right? She had to go through with the rage and kill Kang. And now she, as of a consequence of her actions, now we have the multiverse. So yeah, that's the only thing I was a little weird about. Again, I can understand why people like it, but it's not my thing. But overall, again, strong series. Strong enough that they're going to make a second season without even like waiting. Like, they just straight up went into it. They didn't wait for like audience reception, get a feel if like, what people would and wouldn't want this, but they just trusted themselves and dove deep. So cool on them. Well, I guess with that, if there's nothing else to say,
blood brother. They're not actually related. Yes, that's true.
Then we can end it off here on the recording, Nas.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So